Welcome to the Microsoft Security Insights Podcast with your hosts, Franklin Grimberg and Edward Walton, where we discuss Microsoft 365 security and Azure security news and products. Recorded September 1st, 2021. Good evening, Franklin.
Good evening, Edward. I have an exciting show lined up for you tonight.
Exciting is relative, and I think this is a dig at Edward. Edward does not like to be dug at, right? But that's okay.
We have a guest host and we have a guest on. So I have limited time tonight, so I want to jump right in and introduce the other guest host, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So this is Brandon Neeb. He's responsible for the Microsoft certified IDs and merging of the profiles on the Learn site. So do you have any questions for him?
Why do you hate me, Mr. Need? I've been battling this, trying to merge my profiles, and I've had my entire MCP history erased. I've been in so many support calls. They canceled my certification exam request without me knowing. I'm showing up saying that you don't exist.
He actually took the SC-200 course and didn't get a score. And it's like there's no history of him actually taking the SC-200 exam. All right, so I'm just kidding with you. That's not Brandon's job.
I'm sorry.
You were all excited there for a minute.
I know who to go get now.
All right, Brandon. Let's. So the whole topic of the show tonight is going to be the SC-200 exam, and so we have somebody that took the instructor-led training, and we also have Brandon that was responsible, I believe, for the SC-200 course. So let me have Brandon introduce himself.
Sure. Hi. Yes, I am Brandon Neeb. I am with Worldwide Learning at Microsoft, and which is the division basically where we publish all the certification exams and the instructor-led training courses that support those exams, as well as if you go to docs.microsoft.com, the Microsoft Learn content, we publish a lot of that content that also supports the exams that we do. So. My involvement with the SC-200, which is our security operations analyst role-based certification and content. We contrived that we came up with that last year, about a year ago, and did the investigation in terms of what that role looked like. And we published that exam, was it like, I want to say February, April, sometime between February and April, we had that out.
It was 1 week after the unified portal was released.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So yeah, that's the story.
All right. So our actual guest for tonight, not our other guest host, is Asif. He can introduce himself. And I gave him some homework, and Brandon has some questions for you, but I gave you some homework of the top 5 things that you learned, top 3 things that moved up in your priority now, and top 3 long-term priorities from that. So, Brandon's here to learn from you because he cares about having quality content out there to make the learning experience solid for the learners out there. So, let's go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll get on with with our examination of you.
Okay, excellent. So my name's Asif Nasar. I work in the security team now in public sector in the UK for a local council. And background's infrastructure, deployment, MDT, SCCM, and as I said, I've kind of now been pushed into security, and I've got to try and understand all these fancy new tools, Sentinel, MCAS, MDI, MDE, and just kind of make sure we're using them in the best way possible. That's kind of where I'm at, I suppose, right now at the moment. So quite challenging because I'm new to it all, and you're kind of having to learn and do the job, which can be quite challenging, especially with trying to make sense of it all. It's like having all these fancy cars, and then all the lights start going off. And it's like, oh, what does that mean? Oh, okay, well, this has happened. Great. What do I do now? So it's kind of getting around that, understanding, best practice as well, understanding what's been turned on, where it's been turned on, does it need to be on, what does it mean? So a massive learning curve for me, having been introduced to everything. I think it would have been easier if we had just the kind of one or two different tools implemented, but because we've had everything in one go, quite challenging, because I'm meant to be the guy who's the security guy for infrastructure, because the way our teams are kind of split, you've got the workstation team who deal with clients. So they had somebody from the workstation team, and they thought, okay, well, we need someone who's going to deal with the clients from the security side. I was infrastructure, wasn't there for the implementation, and then was told, yeah, well, it was funny because my manager asked us in the meeting, he said, oh, so we've been asked to basically find somebody else on the team to join the security team. Is anyone interested? And nobody said anything. And then I happened to ask the question afterwards, and it was just a question, express some interest. And next thing you know, I've got a calendar invite sent to me for a security meeting, and thought, okay, well, I'll join the meeting, see what happens, see what it's all about. And then the meeting started with somebody just kind of explaining that one of the girls who was on our team, she was leaving because she was security from infrastructure at that point, and said, yep, so and so is leaving the team, we're really sorry to see her go, but Asif will be joining the team and he'll be taking over. And I hadn't agreed to anything, so just kind of pushed into it, which is funny. That's kind of where I'm at. Just basically want to be able to use all these tools effectively, and the SC-200 helped massively. I initially looked at the MS-500, looked at the exam objects, and I thought, okay, this will probably be more useful to me, but I found the SC-200 much more useful for what I needed, especially because with dealing with alerts, incidents that come in, using the different portals and so on, and for me, understanding what the differences are between for example, certain features that are available to Windows 10, like AIR, automated incident response, then realizing that actually, hold on, for 2016 servers and prior, you're not really gonna get that. So it's interesting finding out what features are available for Windows 10, Server 2019, but ones that aren't as well for the others. So yeah.
Okay.
So it kind of waffled there a bit. But
it sounds like you got a big plate. I hope you have a big fork.
Yeah, a massive plate, mate, and it just trying to juggle it all, trying to set expectation, quite challenging. I don't think companies out there get it, that security isn't just one thing. It's like I'm kind of now being pulled into retention policies as well, only because at the time when the organization I worked at, they decided that when they went to Office 365, they were going to set everything to not delete, basically. And then what happened was we ended up with one of the users quite high up. Her email stopped working, calendar invites stopped working. The PA was complaining, saying I can't manage her calendar. And then the Exchange guru was busy. Somebody else was off. Somebody else was busy. Asif, well, we need someone to deal with this. I've never dealt with it before. I didn't know what the hell retention policies are. I'm more of an on-prem guy, so I've got that challenge as well now, that I've got to learn and understand Azure. Because I was the only one there available, I was like, okay, all right, fair enough. So figured out what I needed to do, figured out what the issue was, tried to work out what the process is if this ever happened again, and then got that in the bag. And because I was there for that part, I'm now kind of being pulled into retention policies now, even though it's not kind of related to what I'm doing. But that would fall under compliance as I understand it. So, businesses don't get that security isn't just one thing. It's they're quite separate things. And you can't have, if I'm looking at it now, we've got 2 people on our team, trying to do it all, trying to understand it all. It's, quite challenging.
Interesting. So one of the questions I had, and you answered a little bit of some of them, is it sounds like you didn't have background in like other security tools other than Microsoft ahead of time or before, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the challenges that we had when we put this course together was where to start. What knowledge do we assume that the people have when they come to the class, right? So for example, we don't explain cybersecurity concepts like lateral movement or phishing, right? We don't even talk about that in the course. We assume you come to the class, you already know those things. Did you find anything challenging because we don't cover those kind of foundational concepts when you went through the class, or what kind of thoughts do you have around that?
Well, for me, I mean, and I know you mentioned like it's the MITRE attack things that you're talking about, aren't you? The different stages. So for me, because I kind of I'm a bit like a bit of a geek in the sense that if I don't understand it, I will literally like go to the ends of the earth to try and understand everything about it and play around with things, break them. Okay, well, why did this happen, and so on. So that helped me also having conversations with the implementation guys as well. Although I wasn't kind of involved in the doing part of it, I was near the end of the implementation. I kind of managed to get some time with the Microsoft guy who was doing the implementation where we were working. So he kind of helped me in understanding, things like that, the MITRE attack framework and so on. So then, I suppose if I'm talking about myself, I kind of knew some bits already. So, but I was thinking about where you had people who hadn't got that experience or haven't used the portals for a while. Because I went into security, I was pushing into security in February. So I've had March, April, May, June, July to kind of like play around with the different portals and so on. So because I had a good few months to try and kind of sponge in whatever I could, it wasn't a lot of the things that were spoken about weren't new to me. But for someone who's brand new, 100%, I was actually sitting there thinking, wow, some of these guys are quite new. So how much of it did they actually understand? If it was me and I didn't know what I knew now, it would have gone way over my head.
Right.
Purely because I hadn't used the portals, the tools, I wasn't familiar with it. So I think having had that chance to have used the kind of portals and the tools, that helped me massively.
In your class, how many students were like new to security? How many students were there? And if they were new to security, did they ask the instructor the questions, and did that slow down the class because of that? What is your feeling on that?
So in the class that I had, I think there was a class of around 13 people. And out of those 13 people, probably around 2 or 3 that were like, brand new to it all. But I did find that because everyone else was already in security, I don't think they felt comfortable enough to ask the questions. Because I used to be an MCT at one point myself, so I know what it's like when you're teaching a class where some students will be quite open and they'll ask the questions. Some of them will just kind of like not want to ask questions in case they look stupid as well. So the 2 or 3 that were quite new to security, they didn't really ask many questions, I found.
Yeah. So did you find that the instructor could sense the room and say, hey, the cliche is there are no dumb questions, right? But something along that line and say, hey, security is an evolving thing. If you go, I used to tell people all the time, if you go on vacation, you'll come back dumb. You go on holiday for 2 weeks, you come back, and then it's totally different. So did you get a feel that the instructor would have reached out if he sensed it, or did the instructor maybe didn't reach out? What was your confidence in the instructor? Did you feel as though he was talking in confidence to say, this is how it is, or was he? So students, when you deploy MCAS, how did that go?
I think it's like 2 weeks ago now. Can't remember what I did yesterday. I think he did a pretty good job. I think he did have that expectation that he expected us to kind of know certain bits. Although he did ask everyone for like an introduction in the beginning of the course, like who you are, where you're at, what you're looking to get from the course. I think he did have some level of expectation that I'm hoping that you guys have come from a security background. So that's what I found.
I have one more question before Brendan. With that being said, how many fellow classmates did you have in your session?
I think it's about 12 or 13 people.
12, 13. Let's just make it 12. Easy math, right? Out of the 12, including yourself, how many do you believe were there to learn? And how many do you believe were there to learn the material to pass the exam? Because those who already had the experience just want to validate, okay, is the things that I'm doing every day being referenced in this course so that I can go past the exam? And how many people were there to say, oh my God, I need to learn this stuff? Do you have a sense? If you don't, sometimes you can fill the room, you can go, oh, okay, this person definitely,
It's a difficult question to answer because we never really discussed how many are here for taking the exam, but from what I've experienced is that I'm 42 now, so what I've experienced is that a lot of people that are kind of like younger, they're quite like, oh, I want to take the course and I want to take the exam. But I just felt like with the older lot, like my age and kind of older, they're not massively concerned with the certification. It's more a case of like, what I've been told to do this in my job. I need to figure out how this all works. So that's what I've kind of found from experience. For me though, I mean, definitely I'll be going for the certification because I've always done that with back in the days I did my Windows XP exam 70270, 271, 272, server 2003, 290, 291, all those exams. That's where I started off. So for me, but exactly, so for me, definitely I'll be going for the certification. I'm even considering getting my MCT again because I've always liked teaching it as well and passing on the knowledge, because at the end of the day, somebody's, you haven't got to where you are without help. So I think it's always nice to pay it back where you can, for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like you also need to do the SC-400 for your compliance side.
So
how did the instructor handle the changes in the portals and the changes to the product? Do you think he handled that well, or because I've been in some other classes where the MCT has just complained about it?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't really complain about the course at all. He actually, I asked him, so how did you find the course, the content, and teaching it? Have you taught this before? And he had, I could tell as well. And he goes, yeah, it's okay. That was his response. So he did say that he had taught other courses where the content wasn't as great to teach or easy to teach. So he had positive things to say about the course, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Getting back.
question, Mr. Neeb.
Yeah.
So you got to be an MCT to deliver this, correct?
That's right. You're supposed to be an MCT to deliver it, and right, that's right.
Do you have to have passed it? Yeah, there you go. You know where I was going with it.
I think there's a time window that you had to have had other certifications to teach the class. Now you need the SC-200 to actually teach the class.
Okay, so Frank asked the question. Got an answer. Okay. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
asked and answered. Yeah, there's anytime we come out with a new cert or a new certain course like that, there's a window of time, right? Because if the course comes, our intention is to try to have the course that supports the cert come out at roughly the same time. So it's kind of impossible, right, for someone to have passed the exam that just came out, maybe, right, and they're teaching it. It's you know what I mean. So yeah, there's a little window of time there. But yeah, I think at this point, now that it's been out for so many months, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to have passed the exam in order to teach the course.
All right, your next question, Brandon.
Yes, yeah. Actually, just I kind of wanted to build on what Edward was asking about. It's interesting. Early in my career, I was an MCT for a number of years, and I noticed, yeah, there's kind of like, it feels like there's three different types of students that are in the class. There's the first category is like, I need to deploy this thing next week, so I'm in the class right now, which kind of sounds like what you were in, Asif. And then there's the other ones which are, my boss is paying for this and I needed to do training, so I'm in the class. And then there's the, I need to pass this exam, and so I'm here so I can pass the exam at the end of the week. And as an instructor, you definitely pick up on that. Maybe not so much.
I actually had the two old guys from the Muppets in the balcony. I had them in my class once. It was very annoying. So.
Oh yeah, they always want to comment on everything. Yeah. So Asif, my next question I had was, so there's other security vendors that teach and offer security related certifications like ISC squared and SANS. Have you ever taken any of those courses or any other security courses on other platforms?
No, I haven't. So as I said, I'm kind of brand new to all of it. I have looked at SANS. And Frank, you've kind of suggested the FO, the full 508, which I was looking at. But if I'm honest, I've been looking at what it teaches, and I've been looking at it thinking, there's no way I'm going to pass that exam with my knowledge that I have now. You don't
let me break in here. The way that they do their exams is they take the books and they actually write the exams from the book. Okay. So the SANS exams, you basically, well, they're changing it up a little bit. So when I took it, so basically you go back and you learn the material and you index the material in the book, because then you can go in, it's an open book test, and you take your index with you, and then you go through it. So don't be concerned about that with the depth of the material. So just to let you know.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that exam, none of the SANS exams are easy, right? But Franklin gave me great advice on how to, properly structure your notes, because even though it's an open book test, you will not pass. The material is too vast if you don't figure out this. And one thing I learned from not passing one of the advanced analytics security is that the labs are important, right? I know this is not about the SANS course, but anytime there's a lab associated or there's a practical to do something that can reinforce what you've been told, do it. I made a mistake of like, man, I've been doing this for years. Click, you fail. Who, me?
Well, now we know it's a valid test. If you,
it's a running joke.
It's a running joke, Brandon. If Edward passes the test on the first time, it's not a valid
test. It's
not
a good test.
He has to fail it at least once or twice for it to be a valid test. So
I mean, I think I scored so high on the SC-200, they couldn't even score it. So they just said, well, you weren't here. It was a bot that did it, right? But I'm sorry. Go continue. Brent, I think Mr. Neeb, you had a question.
Right. Yeah. No, the reason I was asking that question, it kind of builds off what I was asking about earlier, which is, we don't cover all, cybersecurity basic foundational concepts. And I was just curious if you had a thought on, of those kind of third party or other cert providers, which would be what would be like the best cert to have or training to get prior to doing the SC-200? What would help the most? But
okay, I mean, I've looked at obviously what the SANS courses offer. Look very useful. However, I don't know what kind of weight they would hold here in the UK, because obviously it's kind of, so I don't know, how well it's kind of regarded or known here. I mean, if I go back to my days when I first started IT, I mean, the very first exam that I took, excuse me, what was the CompTIA A+, and I mean, I went on from that to, the as I said, MCDST and so on. But what I found was with the CompTIA exams, that gave me a solid understanding because it's vendor neutral. So that really helped me. So I don't know what the security exams are like for CompTIA, but that's something I'd probably consider. At work, Dave mentioned, because I spoke to them about the course you spoke about, Frank, the 4508, and I told them it's like $7,000. They're like, what? So they've kind of suggested, or why don't we look at the training provider who we went with, what was it, QA, and see if they kind of do like a similar course. And I was like, look, I'm not interested in that, because I've got the guy from Microsoft who created the courses telling me, look, the SANS courses is what you need. So that's the one I kind of want. So kind of the answer I got was, well, okay, well, if you need it, then we'll. I don't think it'll be a problem. So yeah. So being new to it all, I don't really know. I can't give you I can't say I'd recommend this, because I don't know if I'm honest.
Brandon,
I have an opinion on that.
Okay, let's hear over.
Why I think the 508 exam makes you better at security, especially endpoint type stuff, investigation, hunt evil, a whole bunch of things. In my humble opinion, I don't think that will have a significant preparational effect for the SC-200. There's no 1-to-1. There's not even a 2-to-1 or a 2-to-3 or whatever that relationship is that's going to do it. That's just my opinion on it.
So no, Forensics 508 is definitely in a different area. For them to get, for them to have the foundation I think Brandon is looking for, there is a lot of like Security Plus and all that other fun stuff out there that's available to them. I'm into, and there's a lot of prep material out there, that you can books that you can buy and so on. I'm big into learning the material, but never taking the test unless it's required for my job, right? Because I don't want to get caught in the, hey, you have to pay $50 a year to keep your cert going, that sort of thing, right? So I don't take a lot of certs because of that. That's one of the nice things about Microsoft now going to the yearly free renewal on Learn of the cert. I'm now willing to take other Microsoft certs where I would not have done that because I don't want to deal with the pressure of going out $165 every 2 years or whatever, show my continuing education credits and all that to go through. So Black Hills Information Security does a lot of free webinars and trainings out there. So there is a lot of content if somebody's going to put forward the effort and just get a book and spend 40 hours, and they're going to be ready to understand the basics to go into the SC-200 course, but they're going to have to put forward that effort.
So, Mr. Nasar, I got a question for you. During the time that you were taking the course, how many days was it? 4? Was it 4 days?
Yes. So it was 4 days, but it was kind of 3.5 because he managed to get through most of it by the 4th day around lunchtime, like 12 o'clock, 12:30.
But he did 3.5 days of content presentation and basically gave you a half a day for the labs, or was it half days each day, or how did he do that?
Yeah.
Well, no. So it was. I said, day 1, day 2, day 3, no labs. Again, day 4, he finished the slides and everything, and whatever he needed to teach. And then at 12:30, he goes, well, look, guys, we're pretty much done for the day. unless you've. So I'll leave it to you what you want to do now. I don't mind staying on for a bit, maybe till if you want to take lunch, and then I can come back after lunch, have half an hour lunch, and I can stay on for about an hour or so.
So that Brandon, that means that there's 3.5 days of presentation and demos on the 4-day class. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but at first the SC-200 was supposed to be a 5-day class. So I actually developed content for 5 days, not for 4 days.
Well, I was going to say it's interesting they did that because the labs are, they're kind of set up as to be about 12 hours of labs in this course, right? And so, and they're structured to come, to kind of break up the presentation, because nobody likes sitting through 8 hours of presentation, right? And it sounds like that was the case for the first 3 days. So yeah, it's interesting that they did it that way, because it's supposed to be 8 different modules with lab that comes at the end of each one, so that the learner gets that experience.
So on the quality of the lab, sir, and I won't ask you the question whether you actually did the labs or not. I mean, I don't know how distracted you were when you truly got time off to go take this course. No one really. It's very rare that your job doesn't bother you. Right. And they know you're in training, but they still bother you. But can you give me a numerical quality of the lab? 1 being, oh my God, I can just do this in my own environment. And 5, like, wow, this looks like the real world. What was your experience with the labs?
So I think I haven't completed all the labs yet, if I'm honest, because it's just trying to find the time outside of work to do them. Right now I've got a lot going on, but out of the labs that I have done so far, I don't have a testing environment. So for me, yes, very useful, because being new to all this tech, I'm always wary of doing things or turning something on or whatever, and especially when you don't know what kind of impact it's going to have or whatever. It's really useful for me to have the labs, to be able to do so, play around with it, test it, understand how it all links together. So for me, it's been amazing. It's been excellent. You said number from 0 to 10. For me, definitely, a 9 for sure, because I don't want to be the guy who turns something on and it breaks something or causes services to crash. So
the Microsoft security tools can generate a pink slip. You turn them on, in especially tenant-wide type things.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Exactly.
Been there.
But I just wish we kind of, I suppose, because we were given like this Azure pass or something.
Okay, they did do that. Okay, so they gave you an Azure pass, and then they gave you a tenant, and then access to virtual machines. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so they gave me that. The only thing is though, that pass is only valid for 14 days, if I remember. So you get $50. Well, I got $50 credit, and it's, if you use the $50, okay, fair enough. If not, then it's the 14 days, and after the 14 days, then
it expires.
It's done. So for me, that's it's not great, because I've had a lot of things happen in my personal life, so I've not been able to spend time on the labs. So I just feel it's a bit like rushed to kind of get everything done, play around with it all in 14 days. So I don't know what's going to happen now after 14 days, whether certain things aren't going to work for me or not, because then So
Brandon, how long is the M365 E5 license for? Do you know?
The tenant that's distributed there, you should be able to use that for at least 30 days. But yeah, like you said, the Azure Pass itself expires after 14, so you'd have to put in your own credit card to have, or use, if you've got your own Azure subscription, use like a, kind of have your own, set up a separate subscription just for testing, the labs and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but you're gonna need to keep that old Azure environment to deal with the way that AD is integrated in with Defender. So you'll want to go back to that side. But when we developed the labs, I mean, we spent like no more than $1 or something like that.
Right.
So it's not going to be very expensive for you to keep it going. Just realize that you got the 30 days on the Azure Defender trial. So you want to make sure that all that's turned off. And I don't think you're going to incur much of an expense at all to continue on that. The key thing here is have the M365 E5 environment for what you need to do. Which if I said, would I want the Azure Pass or the M365 environment, I'm choosing the M365 environment. So the Azure cost should be very minimal.
Right. Okay.
And that was by design.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Do
mean,
you
I think. Sorry.
Steve, do you think it's? I'm big into self-investment, right? Do you think to hone your skills and stay out of production to get you in trouble that you would say, you know what? I don't have time to keep playing around with 30 days and $15 here and $20 there to just say, I'm going to buy me an E5 license, maybe see if I get my employer to expense it as a training expense so you have your dedicated lab. I see a benefit in it, but do you think after the test, like, hey, if I don't get somewhere I can continue to play with this stuff, I'm going to have issues. Would you take this as a precursor to go ahead and invest and spend, let's just say hypothetically, $600 or 600 UK dollars or whatever to buy your own lab to maintain it?
Well, it depends. If it's 600, bucks, pounds a month, then of course not.
No, not a month, a year. No, I would pay $600 a month.
Yeah.
The only person that makes that type of coin on this call is Frank.
just so I can pay off my Azure
IoT.
Defender for IoT bills.
Yeah, but no, definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, if you gotta invest in yourself. So £600 a year, it's not going to kill me, and it is useful for me to have that, because if I don't have that test environment, it becomes a lot more difficult. Then when I am then tasked to do things at work, it's okay. Well, you've asked me to do this. You sent me on the training course, great. So I know how to use these tools now, but it's you always worried when you then got to turn things on, because you're like, okay, well, what's actually going to happen? So those are really important. I think what they said to us is, with the labs that we were given, we've got access to those labs, VMs, for like 6 months. I think that's what they said to us.
And that might be true for the VMs, yeah, but your Azure Pass, like you said, will run out and stuff like that. So I kind of ruined some of the questions I was going to ask her on the labs. So no, that's okay, because I'm, like I said, introduce myself. I'm the publisher of this, so I'm not a GBB like Edward is here, and actually in the business so much. But I still have to test those labs every month, because either the portals are changing or we get a new M365 tenant every month. So anybody who's taking the class is getting a really fresh M365 tenant when they do the labs. But anyhow, to me, when I go through those labs, because I know I've been through them a number of times, to me it was a little boring at first, until I got to the module 7 and module 8 labs, where all of a sudden we're doing investigations and we're seeing all these, the alerts kind of coming through. So it was one of those things that it really kind of had a crescendo effect, was my opinion of the labs. And I'm just curious of thoughts on related to that. But yeah, if you haven't gotten through them all yet.
Yeah, I mean, I've got as far as I'm on the KQL part of the labs. Okay. So that's kind of how far I've got so far. Run this again, just trying to understand what it's actually doing, what each command does. I suppose is the I mean, it's great, hey, you've got this command or this script, run it. But me just being a bit of a geek, I like to understand it all. It's like, okay, so what does this actually do? Okay, so kind of understand that, like, for example, if you kind of specify, I don't know, like device events. Okay, great. So I know what that part's doing. And I suppose you need a bit of programming experience as well to kind of get it. You've got your if then. I think you can do that in KQL, can't you? The statements and so on. So again, a bit of a learning curve there if you're not a programmer. But again, it's made me realize that especially for the exam, even it's not something you can afford to ignore. KQL. Right.
And I'll tell you, that KQL portion of the course is so ambiguous and just so guys. Yeah. I'll just tell you. I mean, but I tell you what, I was KQL dumb, right? When I got into supporting Sentinel, it became a necessary, and I do have some scripting, PowerShell, and I do have some programming from back in the day, Visual Basic, some C. But you don't need it. You need, in my opinion, you need that. You're going to get that aha moment. I promise you. You're going to get a statement. You're going to get a KQL query and reverse engineer it. Say, I know what the output is, but I'm going to reverse engineer it and see what it does. And once you do that, I promise you, the light's going to go on. And Frank used to always like, hey, how's your KQL skills this week? How's your KQL skills this week? And then one day I was doing something, and it went from a little bitty query to this deep.
Yeah.
And it was 2 commands that made me truly understand it: union and join. And once I got that, I had to take multiple queries and put them together. And then once I got that, I got workbooks. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. And so don't let the KQL stuff. This is just these guys trying to prove they're smart, man. You can get that.
So Brandon, you're an expert at doing workbooks now, right? Was that one of your favorite exercises in there?
Yeah, that one's okay. No, what I was going to ask about the KQL stuff though was, so I published with, I've been here for a while. So this Transact SQL 2012 course. I don't know if any of you are in the database stuff, but that T-SQL course, the content in there reminded me it seemed very similar to the KQL kind of thing. So I'm just curious if you guys had thoughts or experience with Transact SQL, or thought that it felt to me like it could be an easier transition if you're a database person to doing KQL. And
it is, but one of the things that we talked about on that class was that the KQL stuff is very much a primer because it doesn't go over everything in KQL. It's very focused for the security person, where the class you're talking about was Transact SQL, every single detail.
Right.
So, did we hit the right balance is the question between the depth of KQL versus just kind of the primer. And I think that's something that I think will be expanded over time, but that's the other thing that we have to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Not a database person at all. So I'm not a DBA, but if you use any server class work, then they're going to ask you what is your backend database, right? System Center or whatever else. So teach SQL, by no means an expert, but I did see people that have had that experience, understand better things like inner and outer, right?
Yep.
And and so maybe that's why I didn't. It took me a minute to understand. Okay, what happens when I do a join or a union, and summarize and in and out. And once I got that, but by no means you need to be one. I tell you who have good experience with this. Let's get away from the on-premise. Data science people, especially Azure, because they live in KQL, right? Azure monitoring all this stuff. I mean, they jump into this test, and KQL was like, oh, this is just an anti, right? And find mistakes. Like, well, I wouldn't read it that way, because some of the KQL answers are not the most optimized in the exam. Like, yeah, that works, but that's not the most optimized ways to do it, right? But you won't do that
how do you know? You haven't taken the test.
I have taken the test, right? They just because they erased my entire profile and my MCP number from back in the day doesn't mean anything. Oh my God, don't get me started on that.
All right, Brandon.
So, but I do know the guy that's in charge of MS Learn now, so I could ask him to do some back end magic to say, hey man, can you make me exist again? Because you can't.
No, I can't. No, and I've been through the same thing too. I took the M365 fundamentals exam last year, and I had a little bit of a similar experience with my MCP ID and stuff. So yeah, I can appreciate it.
Yeah. To go back and clarify a joke that I did, as if the KQL is one of the better written and the better constructed modules in the entire course, right? You can definitely see where the person that constructed the course had expertise, right? Some like the MCAS section, he didn't know much. The KQL stuff and everything else, he was really sharp, right? As well as the MDE piece. I'm gonna be honest, right? So I'm like, oh my God, this is the most wrong MCAS answer ever. Do that, right? And I'm doing a dig at Frank, because this, once again, inside Joe's friends, we can do that. But you get that KQL down.
The funny thing is, if you think about the KQL module in the skills measured, it wasn't really listed there. So I don't know if you remember that or not, Brandon. Like, hey, we have to throw something in here about KQL.
Right.
And then we're like, do we put it at the absolute beginning of the course or put it in the middle before Sentinel? But well,
Yeah.
actually, people wanted us to put it in the Sentinel section. I'm like, no,
I didn't know that.
it's too many learning,
Right.
too much learning in that area. So hopefully, in the middle, breaking up those two things are fun. But
Well, if it's
Yeah.
not measured, and maybe you guys don't know this answer, or maybe you do and you can't say. If it's not one of those black lines, in the end needs improvement and everything,
Skills measured.
is it thrown away, or is it added?
no, because it's actually used in creating a scheduled query, right? So
Yeah.
where they're actually testing scheduled query, but never actually called out KQL specifically,
Right.
Yeah.
is what
Yeah.
we're saying.
Okay,
So-
I get it.
Right.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So that's why I haven't looked at the exam in a while either, but that's why there might be some KQL on the exam, because it's in the context of another learning objective
Right.
that you need. Yeah. That's what we're saying.
Makes sense.
But that was a big debate early on. How much KQL should be part of the exam? How much should you have to know? That was we had a lot of debate around that.
Okay.
It's some yes, but massive no. I don't know the right answer to that, considering I didn't
yeah.
pass.
and different people have different opinions. Like we have this with other exams too. Like how much PowerShell should be in the exam, and some people have the opinion that, well, everything I do is in PowerShell, but when I create my PowerShell script, I go look at my my book of commands and then I figure it out. I'm not, I don't have to come up with that from memory.
Yeah.
And so they don't like seeing PowerShell. Some people don't like seeing PowerShell on the exams, and so anyway, it's and
it's hard because if you go take a developer exam, it's the language seems different. The way it's written, totally. I don't know if you're in charge of that, but it's just the flow is different. I've taken some developer exam just to see what they're like, right? Because I have some vouchers that are going to expire. It's like, yes, you're speaking English, but this is not English that I know. This is not the British version of English. This is a different version. So I'm understanding the words, but I'm not understanding what you mean by that. So developer exams are not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
All right, Brandon. Next
So
question.
Asif, back to you. The I had what was, maybe it's too early to ask this since you just had the course a couple weeks ago, but what did you think should have been covered that was not covered in that class?
I think, okay, for me, it's it was useful, well, when I was on the course, it was great because I was able to then, it reaffirmed what I thought I knew, because not having been in security, it's like you once you kind of look something up, you think you get it, but you're still doubting yourself because you're new. So it was nice to kind of see certain things that I thought I knew were reaffirmed. So that was useful. Again, what would have been useful is, and I don't know if this is the course that it should be part of, but it was the, knowing how to use the tools is great, but it's the, okay, well, like, in my job now, every day I'll get incidents and alerts, come through, and it's knowing what to do with those, especially when you don't have the experience, because, we've got so much, noise, as they call it, from in M365 Defender, in Sentinel, and it's like, okay, well, when this happens, you're telling me something's happened, but okay, what are my next steps? Or what should be the very basic things that I should be doing to kind of troubleshoot this issue or this event that's happened? That's what, again, that's what would be very useful for me right now in my role. Is okay, well, because I've got to do that now. I've got to look at every single incident or alert that's happening, and then, okay, well, what do I do with this? I mean, we had so what was it, last week, I had an incident, or it was an alert that came through in M365 Defender, and it said oh, this user has basically somebody set up a policy in MCAS to say if anyone basically works from the outside of the UK to kind of send out an alert. So M365 Defender told me, okay, oh well, this alert has been triggered. Looked at M365 Defender, looked at the IP section, and it said, oh, this person was logged in from the US, from the States somewhere. So I've had loads of those before. I've contacted the manager, and they said, no, yeah, we're aware that he or she's working from abroad, and we're okay. But this scenario, when I contacted the manager, she said, well, she's definitely not in the States because she just lives down the road from me, and I know she's going on annual leave tomorrow. But as far as I'm concerned, she's working from just down the road. So I was like, right, what do I do now? So I thought, okay, hold on, because we didn't have a process or anything. Again, this is all new to us. There is no process for anything. So I thought, okay, straight away, what do I need to do? If the manager's told me she's here, but M365 Defender is telling me she's in the States, then yeah, user account needs to be disabled. Okay, should I disable a computer? Okay, right. Go to the find a machine. Use the isolate device button on there. Did that. Okay, what else can I do?
And I'm going to share something with you after this call.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I think you're going to find highly valuable. Let me ask you a quick question though.
Okay.
When you got this alert, what was the source detection? Was it an impossible travel or login from a frequent country and the source was MCAS, or did MDE see it?
So it's a policy that somebody in the network team created. It was like a custom made policy to say, okay, well, yeah. So basically that's what happened. So I thought, okay, I'll disable the user account. I'll isolate the device. What else can I do? Maybe I can stop her from signing in via the Office 365 Admin Center. Okay, I'll go there. I'll select that option. There's an option there where I can close out all the sessions if there are any available. I'll do that as well. And I thought, okay, but I still I was left doubting myself. I was like, well, have I?
You don't have root cause.
Yeah, exactly.
So let me ask you this. Did you know about those things because you went to the SC-200 class? Mm-hmm. Did you say, oh, here are my options to go and do those things? Would you have known those options before the SC-200 class?
In my case, I did, because as I said, I've been playing around with the tool since February. So, for me early on, I knew that I needed to understand what these are, regardless of whether I've, if they're going to send me on the training course or not. I need to play around with these tools. And, I was reading left, right, and center. Like, if I finish work, I'm reading, I'm playing around with things. I don't like being put in situations where I don't know what's going on or how to use these tools. So I took that initiative, and like I've always done, I'm sure most people do the same, but I knew because I took the time and effort to figure out the product.
But if you had not known about it, do you think the class would have helped you on that response?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Definitely.
So, the good news is if you take a look at where Sentinel was a year ago, and actually all of these tools, and you take a look at, just go back and take a look at the blog posts that are out there, right? All of them were about how to use the tools, how to create a workbook, how to do this, right? If you take a look at the maturity of the content that's being published today, most likely you are going to find the scenario that you're in and how people are handling it, okay? Mm-hmm. And so the response playbooks about what you should be doing, where Azure Defender actually provides some playbooking, like what they tell you what to do or whatever. And I think more of that's coming out. You'll see that the maturity of the content is really coming along, and people publishing those playbooks. So
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When you say playbooks,
not logic apps.
Okay, what do you mean? You mean standard operating position?
yeah, for, oh, we got this situation, here's what you're supposed to be doing, right? So more and more of that content's being published out there. Yeah, I mean, I think that knowing what to do is in all the different scenarios that can be taking place is difficult. But like I said, the good news is there's a lot more content out there about the Microsoft suite of products out there and blogs about what people are doing, new detections and so on. It's actually a very exciting place to be. And, our friend Rod Trent publishes a lot of that stuff too. So
One thing that Frank is a big advocate of is why there's a bunch of content out there that in itself is detrimental. It's so much you get. Just like this. He is very big on hive mind. Like, there's no reason that anybody on this call should struggle. You should hit somebody up in your network. I got an issue and I need help, right?
that's one reason why we have our Discord server set up.
Yeah, and Frank, since I met him almost going on 3 years, has always been that person. Hey, man, I don't know what I'm doing. What do I do here, right? So I think that building that network to validate what you're seeing out there, because you can get 6 incidents, ask 6 people, and get 15 answers.
Yeah, and that's what I found. Because I've had to rely quite heavily on when things happen, or if I need to I'll give you an example. CPU. I had Defender installed on a server. Got rid of McAfee, put Defender on there, or a new server's been built, and put the ASR rules have obviously been turned on, and put it into block mode, and then maybe a week or two weeks later down the line, somebody said, the CPU keeps spiking, or can somebody check what's happening? We can't do something or whatever. And then I've had to rely quite heavily on like logging calls with Microsoft, and then going through the process of okay, well, this has happened. How do I troubleshoot this? Because I'm familiar with McAfee, semantic endpoint detection, software. So I've used those before, but Defender wasn't really. It was all new to me. So just trying to understand what happened and so on. So I've had to rely quite heavily on those guys. And then you get one answer from someone, and then you think, oh, okay, great. Well, that's what I'm going to do next time. And then when it happens again and it doesn't work, like I found with retention policies, I know it's slightly different, but he did it a slightly different way. And then, yeah, so although I've had to rely on them quite heavily, I always ask, okay, well, thank you for giving me the solution, but how did you get to that solution, right? Because it's like, the CPU was spiking up. I love the MDE client analyzer tool. For me, it's been really, really useful. Trying to use that, and I asked the questions. Okay, well, what switches would you use and when, to kind of understand, because I don't want to have to keep going back to the tech guys at Microsoft. I want to be able to do this myself, whenever these problems happen, because then there's always like time delays and whatever, and people get impatient. So it's always useful to, it's great to be able to do the job, but it's better to know how to fix it yourself as well. So that's what I've had to do, where I've not had the knowledge, heavily relied on logging calls and say, right, here's my issue. How do I fix this? And okay, well, what's it doing? And how did you figure that out? So, yeah.
So Asif, you took the class because you had an impending need to learn the skills so you could do your job.
Yeah.
Do you have an intention to take the certification exam? Does that appeal to you? Do you see a benefit to your career if you were able to pass the exam? Does the management at your company care if you pass the exam or not? I'm just curious of that.
Yeah. So myself, I will be taking the exam for sure. I've got it booked for December. So I've already got it booked. Management in my organization, if I'm honest, they've kind of said, well, look, if you want to take the exams, great. We'll pay for the exams because we're a public sector body. I think they get the exams for free. They're a non-profit organization, so they've got this ESI scheme or something or whatever it is. So I was able to basically book whatever exam I wanted to. So I've got a few booked. But yeah, management have kind of said, well, if you want to take them, great. If you don't, no problem. So they've not kind of forced people or kind of said, yeah, we want you to take the exams. I've worked in other companies, because I've always worked in private sector. This is the only place I've worked where it's public sector. It's slightly different the way they do things and work. But private sector organizations, they've always stressed, yeah, you need to figure this out. This is your baby, and you're taking the certification as well. So some places I've worked at, they said, no, you're taking the exam. We need you to know it.
And it helps. I think you said something early in the call that you're an older guy. I'll be 54 coming up, right? And I understand the fear. You age out, these new folks, they're all smart. They don't have that experience, and so they don't know how to react when that panic hits them, right? Oh my God, I gotta get this done. Slow it down, figure out, and then like Frank said, you weren't satisfied with it being fixed because you want to know the root cause. Because you can't keep calling.
No, yeah, exactly.
Can't keep calling, folks, right? I'd rather call my peer network. And this is not any type of disparity or shade against the support, but my peers are in the field. And they are like, man, I don't get this shit fixed. I'm not going to make my mortgage next month. I need to get this done, right?
Well, yeah.
I like certifications. I've always liked Microsoft certifications. They're my second favorite for a long time. And then when Novell went out of business, they became my first, right? Because Novell was really practical in theirs. I like Novell because they would fail you. They would sense that you were weak in a subject and they'll keep going after you until you fail, right? And I like that. I like that adaptive. But the Microsoft exams do and have gotten better progressively over every year because they decided to distance themselves from what the other companies, Cisco, anybody else, because that was a huge market. Remember, certifications and all this stuff was a thing. It was I don't know about $1 billion market, but multi-million-dollar market, right? So oddly enough, I didn't pass some of these other things, but I passed the CCIE written, but I knew I barely, and I said, I'm not going to pass the lab. I think what I've done is said, okay, I know at least what I'm doing, but if you put me in that lab environment, I'm not going to pass that.
Well, one of the things I think people have to realize about the certifications now is that take a look at the skills measured and make sure, don't go learn it to go pass the exam. Go learn it to learn the skills measured inside and out, and then worry about the exam later, because then you're going to be able to use those tools in your job. And it's a different approach than just trying to figure out how to pass the exam. And I think that's very important. All right, Brandon, anything else?
I got one more thing.
Go ahead.
I love this. I was never a big fan of marking questions and providing feedback, but now that I have had access to individuals that I know are contributors to this and can directly into it, leave feedback.
Yeah.
Save that stuff at the end and don't let that time go waste. It'll allow you to calm down before you finally hit your thing and get your score, and write the feedback. Because if you get your score first and you didn't pass, feedback, right?
Yeah.
Tests suck. Leave the feedback. Franklin's been a big advocate of that. He tells me this all the time. Play it forward and leave the feedback, right? And I do that.
That's very much appreciated. I have people all the time tell me that, oh, I thought that stuff just went into a black hole and nobody looked at it. And it's like, nope, we all, we definitely look at that, and items change when that kind of thing happens. So the last question I had, and it is kind of more exam related. So when the SC-200 exam came out, there was no performance-based testing. And just to remind everybody, performance-based testing is where it's kind of like that lab part Edward was talking about, right? And it's whereas most of the exam is multiple choice or drag and drop or whatever the case. Performance-based testing is where you actually get a tenant and you actually get to do a procedure or whatever, and then we validate that you're able to do that. So that was not part of the SC-200 exam. I don't believe it is even still. But a lot of, as you know, a lot of our Microsoft exams do have that in here. So my question was, if there was something that we would like to validate, like through an actual, have someone do in a tenant or in Azure as a procedure as part of the exam, what do you think would be a good thing to go through a performance-based a testing element like that?
As in a scenario?
As either in a scenario or like what part of the skills measured would be good for testing in a performance-based scenario like that?
For me, I would say, and I'd say this purely because I wasn't part of the implementation. I was kind of handed the environment. So the important parts for me definitely would be testing people on being able to set these up from scratch. So whether it's, Sentinel, MDE, MDI, because, there will be others like will be in my scenario where they weren't there for the implementation, but here you go, this is your thing now. And it's always useful to know how things are connected together. I didn't know what a log analytics workspace was. I didn't know how it was all connected. I didn't know, when you create MDI, you create an instance of MDI. I didn't know there were sensors installed on the domain controller and how that all works. So for me, definitely, what would be useful is making sure people understand how to implement these solutions and how they're all connected together. And again, best practices as well, for sure. That would be very useful because I didn't have that, and the documentation that we did have was useless. So I couldn't rely on that either. So I had to, figure things out, go into the settings, and okay, well, what's this? Or okay, well, when they add the workspace key, when infrastructure add the workspace key in the monitoring agent, all of a sudden it appears in the MDE portal. How's that work? So just understanding the different portals and just the kind of connecting, being able to connect the dots together will be very useful, I think.
I on that note, Brandon, I'd like to touch base with you out of band. Frank and I came up with an idea about some exam structure things to get to you to the 200. I've been playing around with it because I can't take an exam.
Edwards renumbered all the exams and all this stuff. You'll don't contact him. Whatever you do, don't contact him.
You can't. I know his name now. I'll spoof, somebody else that he respects, and he'll eventually answer my email. Right.
All right. So let's do top 3 things that you learned in the course that you weren't expecting to learn because you had some sort of background.
Let me just, I made notes, so let me just bring them up.
I warned you.
Yeah. So top 5 things that I learned. So air was useful to me.
Okay.
It wasn't useful the fact that it doesn't help me because all our servers are 2016 or older, but that was useful to know because
tell people what air is for people?
Yeah, so automated incident response. So when something happens, I suppose it's the automation side of things where it will kind of do its checks to see based on the telemetry and the things that have happened that you guys Microsoft have picked up to work out whether what has happened is legit or not, basically. So that was useful. What else? App sanctioning, that was useful as well.
Yes, baby.
Yeah, so that was useful. Still need to play around with it to understand it and so on, but that's useful because I get alerts in 365 Defender saying, hey, it's funny because I see alerts related to me being on Discord speaking with Frank or messaging him, and it'll pop up saying, "Oh, alert, Asif Nasar or whatever." So so that was useful. I got one. I think it's Frank's favorite actually. Watch lists.
He
Yeah.
listened to the show.
I listen in.
That's made my night.
Yeah. But basically, the instructor, he went through. I've made notes. Said you can create a watch list for all leavers. So when people leave the business, you can add them into a watch list and Sentinel will alert you. So that was useful. Access reviews as well, really useful because I think we've got way too many GAs. That's my opinion, anyways, where we work. So that will be really useful for me to kind of go through that and find out what people actually need instead of what they've got.
Please tell me you're using PIM. Privileged identity management.
Yeah, we are, but yes and no in the sense that some roles are just kind of permanently given. Yeah. So yeah, we are, and we're not. So how many is that so far?
That's 4.
You guys. 4. Okay. Another one. So the instructor spoke about how, and maybe I've got this wrong. You guys can correct me because it was new to me, so maybe I didn't understand it. But I've got it here. You can link DLP policies to MCAS, and then you can kind of restrict what people. You can restrict the type of apps that certain people can use, and so on. So that was really useful to know as well.
Conditional access app policies and session control, and the ability to use built-in DLP with AIP, and in addition to using non-Microsoft DLP tags, be able to do it.
Okay. And the top 3 things that you're going to do now, that you would like to do now, if management let you.
So for me, it's the access reviews top of the list because I don't know. I'm a bit. It's like I don't know what everyone's doing out there. I'll go in and I see something has changed in the system, like from a configuration point of view, somebody's added this in or whatever. So for me, it's that. The other thing is if one of your GA user accounts were compromised, you're not going to be able to say, well, I've never even used that side of the portal. That's not going to be a valid excuse. So access reviews for sure, because I don't think it's been done. I don't think anyone maybe knows how to do it, or maybe it's just been missed. I don't know, but that'll be one of the top things, and I've been tasked to do that. Automation wherever possible, especially because I'm a one-man band, at least for the infrastructure side. So I need to make my job as easy as possible. Especially Sentinel, because they've asked me to look into that. I'm kind of fairly familiar with MDE now. Kind of know what I'm doing. It's just Sentinel. I understand the different things that you can do to automate, but it's just I think ideally what would like to do is to kind of get everything down into processes, and I think maybe notebooks, from as I understand it, will help me do that. But then there's quite a bit of a learning curve because there's programming involved. So I think that's where I'd like to go, notebooks eventually.
Yeah, just for Brandon's notes, there's been some changes to the automations. You probably, when you do the labs, you see that. And so, I don't know if the content's been updated for the new automation rules and so on. So give an example. Asif asked me a question and I answered the way that it would have been done 6 months ago, and Rod answered the way that you should be doing it now in Discord, right? So there's definitely content that needs to be updated around this exact point. Okay, last priority now, unless you have more than that.
But I guess it's reducing the alert fatigue that I have currently. That's on the top of my list. So
what was that again? One more time.
Reducing the alert fatigue that we have. As in all the noise that we've got out there from the different portals,
Just remove MCAS, you'll be fine.
One thing you need to do is the first thing you need to do is go back and look at the source telemetry that's providing that. Probably what's killing you to death is all the lows and the informationals. And the MCAS is a culprit. It does that stuff.
Yeah.
But once you learn it and you create the policies, it learns that when you dismiss and when you take the ticket and when you do these things, it's learning in the background. So it's painful at first.
Yeah.
But it's necessary.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't want something bad to happen because you go, oh, that's nothing. She's well, anything. Just you don't want to be that
All right.
guy. Yeah.
Did you have a top 3 long-term priority things, or is this basically what you're doing?
Yeah, it's basically what I'm doing. I've done long term. Again, being just the kind of one-man band, anything that I'm doing, it's kind of turning into a long-term thing because you can only do so much. So
you feel my pain, man. I got to carry Frank on this podcast. Ugh.
Yeah. So it would be interesting is to have you back on in 3 months, because when I've done training in the past, it's kind of weird.
3 months.
I don't the questionnaire at the end of the class, I'm actually not as concerned about as the questionnaire I do 3 months after the class, because I want to see how the class has impacted you in your job. So it'd be interesting to have you come back on in about 3 months and find out, looking back, oh, that was not really useful for me in the class, but this was really useful. I implemented this, that sort of thing. So it'll be interesting to see where you're at in 3 months with that.
And please don't go 3 months without listening to the show, jumping into the Discord server.
He's on Discord a lot. We talk almost every day. So
I'm not, so I'm just trying to throw shade. But I will be better. I see that you did ping me on Discord, didn't you? Was that you? I said somebody pinged me on Discord, say, yo, Edward. And I'm like, who are you? But I finally got my Discord back up and working. Maybe I blocked it in MCAS. It was not working.
I did remove the Edwards to-do list channel, so you don't have to be scared about coming back on there. So,
Ooh.
All right. I think this has been a great show. Any final questions, Brandon?
No, it's good.
Good.
Brandon, I want to say great job. This Microsoft Learn thing, the talent you brought in to be able to get this stuff squared away. I mean, it was sort of hodgepodge if you learn on your own, but we'll provide the yellow brick road. How you get to the wizards on you.
Right.
But you've really brought the stuff together, right? Don't take my jabs at me trying to merge my accounts. I was warned not to do it this way, and I did it anyway. So this is self-inflicted on me. I've learned my lesson.
I set him up. It was great.
He set me up. But it'll be resolved. The tech support individuals are getting really good. And they're like, oh, well, they say
resolved again. They resolved it once. Now he's got to get it resolved again.
You know what? I'm done.
All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. Great show. Until next week.